My first jobs were baling hay and farm jobs and just horrible jobs. But in high school, I worked at McDonald's, and I very quickly became a shift manager as a junior in high school, as I was the head honcho at McDonald's once or twice a week. And so I learned process, and I learned that you can teach anybody to make a Big Mac. And so process is very important. Early in my wife and I's marriage, we joined Amway. And I had never read a business book in my life. And I'd never listened to a motivating speech in my life. And while we were very unsuccessful at Amway, I probably read a dozen of the best business books. Some of them you're teaching to your classes now. And I hear these people who came from nothing and became something and telling their stories. And it just became very motivating. So those two, learning about process and learning that anybody can do anything, really was my drive. And I remember saying, I am done. I am done with this. And there might have been some choice expletives added to that. And I have never felt a peace in my life like I felt immediately after that. And it was as close to audible as I'll ever get. I can tell you my net worth at the time was probably negative. And it's just been a straight line up ever since.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast. And I got to tell you, I'm super stoked about this episode and my guest today. Before I introduce him though, if you're an excited, growth-minded entrepreneur, or if you're in a profession of sales, we have a free community that you should absolutely be a part of. It's called Relentless Goal Achievers Community on Facebook. As a matter of fact, I'm doing trainings in there multiple times a week. Get in there, become a member. It's free for you, and it'll give us a chance to connect. That's my whole spiel. Now, let me introduce my amazing friend, guest, mentor, just an awesome entrepreneur, a guy who has strong beliefs in his faith, a guy that follows through on all his goals. Steve Martin, welcome, buddy.
Thanks, man.
So what I didn't tell you guys is Steve owns a very boutique, highly specialized financial advising firm here in Sarasota. And I met Steve through F3, our incredible community of men. He was the Nantan, which is the leader when I came in, and he did such a great job leading hundreds of men to get up early in the morning, do workouts at 5:15 and stay happy doing it. So that's a skill in itself. And he's always got a smile on his face. Besides that, he is a triathlete. The guy runs Ironman races, even though I think he's 65 years old. I might be off by a decade or two. Anyway, Steve, I'm so happy that we get a chance to connect like this, man.
Well, this is fun. We chat all the time, but not on this level. So this will be a good time.
Yeah. So today, looking at you, I mean, you are living a dream. You've established a nice company. You got a good team. I had a chance to come to your house and help you move a couch or something. And you live in a beautiful, beautiful home. But knowing you, that hasn't always been your life. And so being the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast, can you just walk us back to the younger days of Steve Martin? Like how did you grow up?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I'll try to keep it short. I grew up in a very small town in Indiana, kind of probably not a one stoplight town, but maybe a 3 stoplight town. And I think it's just typical, Midwest Rust Belt town where when the factories come and go, the towns ebb and flow in their success. My parents both worked in factories. And I think the greatest gift I ever got from my parents was them telling me you can do anything you want. And while they never went to college, frankly, nobody in my family had ever gone to college, I always was told that go get it, you can do it. And so I always knew I'd be successful because I was silly enough to believe my parents. And I just thought that when that day happened, life would get real simple. And what people that have attained a certain level of success find out is life gets much more complicated. You have properties, businesses, LLCs, kids who didn't grow up the way you did. Maybe they feel a little entitled, trusts, wills, just on and on and on. And so that's basically what we set out to our company to solve, is just to make life simple again. And we basically say we help people find their freedom. And I do think there's a freedom in seeing that simplicity, but we help them find that freedom by simplifying their financial lives. And so that's kind of the professional path. I did go to college. I got a degree in physics. I went on a baseball scholarship. Never once desired to be a physicist or a scientist. always wanted to work with people, but that combination of people, money, and math was a perfect Venn diagram, if you will, for where I exist today. And it is my sweet spot. They say when you do what you love, you never work another day, and that's how I feel. I just go to work.
Yeah, you don't look like you've worked a day in the last couple of years that I've known you. So
well, yeah, you talk to my team members, and I'm out and about so much, they'll wonder if I'm working anyway. So I have a great time doing what I'm doing, meeting people, solving problems, and along the way, this triathlon bug bit me. So I'm doing fitness probably to a excessive level, if you ask my wife.
I'm sure she's gaining some kind of benefit from it.
Well, I'm out of the house early, so she gets to sleep in uninterrupted. So that's the benefit.
There you go. Tell me about so when did you decide that you wanted to be what's the proper terms? A financial advisor, financial planner?
The terms get thrown around. I mean, in our industry, everybody says whatever the highest rank is, they all claim to be that, but they rarely fulfill that. So you could be a stockbroker, you could be an investment advisor, you could be a financial advisor, you could be a financial planner, you could be a wealth advisor, and there's different kind of skill sets in each one. Everybody claims to be a wealth advisor, but most people are operating at an investment advisor level. So our firm truly is wealth management, with the tax work we do, the estate planning work we do, just the success level of our clients. But so that is the right term. When did I want to do that? I never wanted to do that. That's the interesting thing. So as you know, in your work with people and training them, I had an opportunity early in life to kind of hit the reset button. My wife and I had saved our money. She had a job. I had time to think. And I decided that I wanted something that fulfilled two goals. It paid me when I wasn't there. And after doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, I got more than a gold watch when I retired. And I frankly didn't care what that was. I joked that it could have been a kiosk in the mall, or it could have been a manufacturing business.
How did you, hold on, back up a little bit, because you don't just get an idea like that, right? Like, do you remember where that idea originated?
Absolutely. So I did my first job. My first jobs were baling hay and farm jobs and just horrible jobs. But in high school, I worked at McDonald's. And I very quickly became a shift manager as a junior in high school, as I was the head honcho at McDonald's once or twice a week. And so I learned process. And I learned that you can teach anybody to make a Big Mac. And so process is very important. And then early in my wife and I's marriage, we joined Amway. And I had never read a business book in my life. And I'd never listened to a motivating speech in my life. And while we were very unsuccessful at Amway, I probably read a dozen of the best business books. Some of them you're teaching to your classes now. And I hear these people who came from nothing and became something and telling their stories. And it just became very motivating. So those two, learning about process and learning that anybody can do anything, really was my drive. And when I had that reset moment, I had a couple months to really kind of figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And this was probably at 25, 26. I realized, I'm good with people. I'm good with math. And I followed the demographics of baby boomers and money and knew if I just followed that, there would be an opportunity to be successful. And I didn't know what that meant. So I started interviewing at banks and brokerage houses and insurance companies and anything that kind of fit those three criteria. And I ended up on a whim at a Payne Weber office. And it's funny, is I interviewed at 2 or 3 different financial planning or stockbroker firms, actually Dean Witter, Payne Weber, and American Express. All of them had a math exam, which I passed very easily. But they also had kind of you understand, like the disc analysis. They wanted to see if I was cut out to be a financial advisor, if this was kind of, or, should I be should I go into forestry? Should I go into working on a boat, or should I be a financial advisor? And in 2 of the 3 cases, I flunked the test. They said I wasn't cut out to be a financial advisor. And the guy at Payne Weber took a bet. He said, I don't know what it is, but there's something about you. I'm going to take a chance. And so I ended up doing 3 months of study. They sent me to Wall Street for 3 weeks. And a year later, I was number 1 in my class.
Wow.
So
when did they tell you that you didn't qualify, but they're taking a chance on you?
so this was probably 1997.
Was there like a chip on your shoulder? Did you want to prove them wrong or anything?
Well, it's funny because the first one I went in and took a test with American Express advisors. There was probably 15, 20 people in the room. And 2 weeks later, I get the letter that says, thank you very much, but you're not qualified to be in this business. Okay. And then I had a chance to interview with the Payne Weber manager. And after taking all the tests, he brought me back in and said, I'm going to take a chance on you. And what's funny is I had a chance to meet the American Express manager about 3 years later after I'd gained a level of success, and said, remember me? And that was a fun conversation.
That's awesome. So that's how you became a financial advisor. But how did you become a business owner?
Well, so I was a financial advisor in 1997, but I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. Remember those two goals? I wanted to get paid when I wasn't working. So I was always driven to build a business that had recurring revenue. I wasn't seeking commissions. And so that from day one, that's just started me off doing whatever's in the client's best interest. I wasn't seeking a big paycheck. And so I kept pushing revenue out into the future. Like, how can I defer this? Or how can I create a stream of income rather than just a lump sum? But I also realized that getting something when I retired 20 or 30 years, it didn't exist in that Payne Weber or Merrill Lynch world. And so in 2003, well, first of all, we had that the tech crash in 2000. And you got to see a lot of the emperors with no clothes. You got to see that a lot of these people's interests were misaligned with clients and how I wanted to run a business. And so 2003, I grabbed a guy that I'd been doing some business with, and I said, I'm starting my own firm. No idea what I was doing. Just had socked away a few dollars, and he and I started our own firm. So it was messy. We had no idea how to run a business. We hired a couple staff people. We had no idea how to hire anybody. And there for a while, we would go into our Payne Weber office till noon, and then we'd say, oh, I got some meetings out of the office. And then we'd go work till midnight at our new office. And this happened for probably a month. And as you can imagine, this was before most people had email. And so we just had stacks of paperwork on tables just ready to go. And so the day I resigned, it's very much like the movie Jerry Maguire, where it's just a feeding frenzy. So we resigned on the day before Thanksgiving in 2003. And I had about a two-mile drive to my new office. Before I got to my new office, one of my clients called me and said, hey, I heard you resigned. What's going on? That's how quickly they disseminate all your accounts. Wow. They go get them. And so, we get to the new office, we drop all the paperwork in the mail, we call our clients, 99% of our clients say, yeah, I want to work with you, not with whoever.
Yeah. And, you didn't have a non-compete?
I did not. No.
Is non-compete, is that something that's like important now? If you hire somebody, do they have a non-compete? No, yeah. Even myself at my own firm, myself and all my other partners have non-competes. Huh. Okay. That's insane. So I can't even leave my own firm and go take the client somewhere. It would be very interesting to see you leave your own firm to take your client somewhere else. I guess if you got bought out. Wow. That's really, really interesting, Steve. All right, cool. So now first day on the job, you guys are now business owners. Right. What did that look like? Oh, it was messy. Didn't have QuickBooks. Had to hire an attorney. Had to hire a CPA. Trying to collect the revenue, pay the staff, pay the rent. The one thing you learn real quickly as a business owner is you get paid last, and so hopefully there's a couple bucks at the end of the day to be left over for you. So, what kind of staff did you have? Well, I had one lady who was probably semi-retired, and we pulled her back into working just to do kind of administrative work for us, paperwork, answer the phones, etc. Quickly hired another person. And we had those two ladies for quite a while. And then staff changed over and some different things. Probably the best decision I ever made was in 2005, I hired Karen, who Karen. And Karen's been my business partner for going on 19 years now. So she was hired as an employee. And several years later, she became my partner. And Karen's a
she's probably the best financial advisor in the country. I mean, she's a CPA, she's a master's in business administration, um, a certified financial planner like myself. She's just got a diligence that I've never seen with anybody else. And so she, given her accounting background, when I hired her in 2005, the first thing she did is buy a book, and it was the E-Myth Revisited. And so we did a book study for the next 6 months on the E-Myth Revisited, and that really turned our mom and pop operation into a business. So I can give Karen the kudos for that. But
I'll give you the kudos because she's completely opposite of you. I've done both of your disc assessments.
Right. We're completely and we fight like brother and sister at times, but it's always in the best interest. We have a shared goal, so it's.
I don't know I'm sure it wasn't done intentionally, but just being open-minded to surround yourself with people who are not like you, spread your horizons so wide that to different ideas, different things that you can think about, because that's not how you think. And Karen is wonderful. I've met her, spent time with her. She's great. So awesome. I mean, great job, Steve.
Well, it's probably all those books I read that said, hire people smarter than you. Don't be afraid of those kind of things. And one thing the physics training taught me was that there's lots of different ways to solve problems, and there's no bad question. And so even today in staff meetings, I will pose questions that I frankly don't agree with, but I want to make sure, if everybody else thinks it's a great idea and I'm the one who thinks it's a bad idea, let's talk about it. So I throw out silly ideas and silly questions all the time because I may be seeing it from the wrong perspective, and somebody else says, no, that's a great idea. Think about it this way.
Can you give me an example of one?
A lot of times it's marketing ideas. I know there's one in particular thing we were just talking about, and it was kind of a job fair kind of approach, which we've never done. And I threw it out. I thought it would be kind of a crazy idea. And somebody said, no, that's really well attended. The kind of our target audience shows up there, and we really should think about that. Okay, I'm glad I brought it up.
Because you're looking to hire?
No, it actually was, it's not a job fair. It's more of where a bunch of businesses go and just kind of shake hands and, get publicity. And it's more of a mass market type environment, which is not really our shtick.
Yeah.
But when I learned more about how the event works, I'm like, maybe that is the right place to be.
Very cool. Is that going to be local?
Yeah.
Very nice. Tommy and I with Slim Chickens did one at the Robarts Arena, and we split a table. And so me and him together, you can imagine how that was.
Yeah. That's one of you guys didn't get arrested, putting the two of you two together.
Yeah, we did not get arrested, and he was giving out food. So those two things went for us. Right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't think we'll be giving out food, so I won't have that. Maybe I need to invite Tommy to come be part of our booth.
Highly recommended. And he, I think today is opening his third location of Slim Chickens in Orlando. That guy is a beast. Huge shout out to our buddy Tommy. Hey, so right now in my Relentless Goal Achievers community, we're doing a study on Think and Grow Rich. And this week, great book. We're doing it through the lens of entrepreneurship. But this week, the chapter is on decision. And one thing I really admire about you, from what I've seen, is just how quickly you make decisions. I think that's a skill set that not a lot of people have. And those who do have it tend to not procrastinate, tend to be more successful based on, people I've met. Tell me about your decision-making process. I mean, you're a process guy. Like, how do you make decisions?
Well, as you know from the training we did with you, I'm an eagle, and eagles tend to sit at the 30,000 foot level a lot. And I am very comfortable making a decision with 60, 70, 80% of the information and living with consequences. I feel like I can get more decisions made. They can be made quicker, and I'm going to be wrong. I'll be wrong occasionally, but the efficiency more than makes up for that because I'll be right 80% of the time, 90% of the time, and I don't spend the extra hours doing analysis and get stuck there. I see too many people just stuck in the weeds, afraid to make a decision, and where I'm 3-4 decisions ahead of them. But the balancing act is I got team members who think the opposite way. And I do have to, what I've learned, thanks to your training, is I can't say, don't tell me anymore because I don't need to know it. I'm ready to make a decision. I got to be respectful because they put in a lot of time to come up with their analysis. So I've got to at least hear enough and acknowledge the work that they put in, because they maybe don't think the way that I think. But as far as making a decision, I am analytical. That's the math and the physics side of it. But when I get to the point where I think I've got enough information, I'm done. I'm ready to go.
Gotcha. Do you spend X amount of time on it? Do you think through it a little bit more? Or do you make any decisions like right on the spot?
Frequently.
I'm
not afraid to make a gut decision. But in our line of work, when it comes to clients, I've been doing this 27 years. So you see a lot of similarities. And so it becomes pretty easy to make a business decision once you know the client's background, their needs, their objectives, kind of their financial status. I've reviewed their tax return. I've reviewed their net worth statement. I see a lot of similarities between them and 5 or 10 other clients I've worked with in the past year or two. And so it becomes pretty easy. Then it's a matter of how do I coach them and realize that while they're similar, everybody's different. And they've got to still feel like they're the only person in the room. They still got to feel special. They got to feel like even though I've made 1,000 Big Macs, I got to make them feel like this is the best Big Mac I've ever made, and it's just for you. And it is. It has to be just for them. So that's.
So what process did you what process did you put in place to do that, to make somebody feel like they're the most special person?
Well, it's I guess from the very beginning, I tried to think of how would I want to be treated, and I would want to feel like that. I'm seen, I'm heard. You've taught me to be a much better listener. And so there's just simple things of, rather than speaking, just asking follow-up questions like, tell me more about that, or I didn't realize that. And next thing you know, I'm learning more and more about clients rather than me trying to everything I know. And I think that's really the magic, because once I know all the extra things about them, and some of them are not necessarily financial, I get to better understand what's really, really important to them and what's time sensitive and what can wait a month or a year. And then we've simply built a process from the minute I know them to the minute they become maybe a serious prospect. And once the person says yes, then there's a very defined process that my team takes over from an onboarding standpoint to make sure that no stone's unturned and that they're constantly communicated with in the manner that they want to be communicated with. And then eventually you become kind of an ongoing client relationship. And there is yet another process to make sure that we continually are hitting all the topics that are necessary and important. So it's a lot of communication, but it's also just looking at things that have worked over the years and doing a lot more of those and doing a lot less of the things that didn't make any sense. Yeah.
So there's this kind of voice in my head right now that's like, you got to talk about faith. You got to talk about faith. Steve is all about his faith and his belief in Christianity. And so I'm going to throw that out there, man. How much of that, because you're the guy that doesn't separate it. Like, that's who you are. You carry it everywhere with you. You make your decisions through that filter. You are that man. And that's something that I really admire and appreciate about you. Tell me about when did you discover your faith, and how do you kind of blend that into your life as a whole?
Yeah, well, thanks for recognizing that, because it's nothing that I go around. I don't wear a shirt that says, "Hey, I'm a Christian. Ask me about it."
I'm calling BS on that because I've seen you in that shirt. So
I have some that are similar, but not exactly. But I don't wear it to work. It's not. I remember years ago I was I'll tell you how I became a Christian here in a second. But I was at a business meeting with other Christians, and people were going around the room saying, "I'm a Christian business, and I'm a Christian business," and they got around the room, and I had to stop, and I said, "Can somebody define what a Christian business is?" And so people said, well, I have a fish on the front door, and I got the Bible verse on my van, and I got, the things that you kind of expect. And I went and I said, well, I am specifically not a Christian business then. And you thought that just like, oh. you see people just like kicking me out of the group. And I said, the reason is because I want to make sure that I can love on everybody. I don't want just people who feel like they're a Christian to walk in my door. And I think if you talk to all my clients, whether they're Jewish or atheist or Christian, I think they all feel comfortable, because what I feel like I'm called to do is to love on them. I feel I'm called to share these principles that I've learned, that Dave Ramsey would call them biblical financial principles. The CFP group, it's exactly the same things that the Certified Financial Planner course teaches, that Dave Ramsey teaches. It's just good, solid financial planning. And I feel that it's just me loving on people and doing what's appropriate for them. And yeah, I get compensated. But I think so many people are looked at as an investment opportunity by their financial advisor. And so I want to make sure that our team is loved on, that they feel seen, they feel appreciated. And I want every one of our clients to feel that way. When people come into our office, everybody's hugging and talking about their families. And we do feel like both our team and our clients are one big family. But to your point, I try to be the same person in my personal life, in my work life, in my you've seen me in the fitness group. And it's who I am. If somebody wants to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it, but I'm not going to beat you over the head with a Bible either. That's just not my style. But the way I became a Christian, because I didn't grow up in church, and being a physics major, I was always looking at the physical world, thinking that's all there is. And I had my first child, and having kids changes you. And I remember exactly the place I was sitting in the car I was driving, and it was one of those beautiful Sarasota days where the blue skies and it's 72 degrees and the sunroof's open, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks that this can't be by accident. And I actually immediately believed that God exists, but I didn't know, was it the Jewish God, the Christian God, the Muslim God, the Buddhist God, the Hindu God? I didn't know what was right. So I probably read 30 books on every world religion. I probably listened to 100 hours of debates. I just became curious. And so it was through that journey that I became a Christian. And there's 2 or 3 people that I can attribute to that as well. One is my pastor, Randy, today, which way back when Bayside was very, very much in its infancy, we used to have coffee probably once every other month. And he would keep answering all my silly questions. Had a client that was very much a faith person, and he's one of these guys that's just always in your face about it, but in a loving way. And I think the most interesting one, and the one I probably try to emulate the most, is I had a client named Dan, who never once talked to me about his faith. He had a little cross pin on his jacket. We never had a faith conversation ever, but I saw how he lived his life. I saw how he treated his family. I saw the joy that he had. I saw his kids. I saw how he treated others. And I just wanted to be like Dan. And years later, Dan ended up taking his money and starting another business, so he wasn't a client. But I called him out to have breakfast with him, and he said, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a few years." And I told him he's one of the reasons I became a Christian. He just broke down in tears. He's like, "I had no idea. I had no idea I was having this kind of impact on people." I'm like, "Well, you needed to know. That's why I'm having breakfast." So I hope to be like Dan someday.
Wow, that's powerful. I hope you get there, man. Sounds like Dan was a very special guy.
Yeah, he's still a real special guy.
So you figured that out. What changes did you make right away?
Well, I realized some of the things that I was doing, I probably shouldn't be doing. And some of that was just really selfish things. It's just more living for me instead of living for others. So it changed how I treated my wife. It changed how I treated my family. It changed how I acted to others. So it was all those kind of things.
Big realization, huh? And so then did your kids end up growing up in a Christian home, seeing their father as a Christian, or did they see the transformation?
I think when I became a Christian, my oldest son was probably 1, and my other kids weren't around. Mm. So they grew up in a home that was Christian, but kind of evolving. And over the years, we've become more and more involved with our church and volunteering and doing the things that I think are appropriate. And so that's, you hope those things rub off on your kids. They're teenagers, so they're in their wayward years, but weren't we all?
Yeah. So talk to me, Steve. Like, do you talk to God, and does God talk back to you?
We haven't had an audible
What are these conversations? You haven't had a what?
We haven't had an audible conversation. It's been one way so far, but I did have, I had a moment where I was going through some financial struggles with business years and years ago. It was probably 15 years ago. And it just got to the point where I was sitting on my back porch and I was doing all the right things and I was reading my Bible and I just kind of slammed it down and I just started yelling at God. And I maybe even said a few words that I wouldn't recommend you saying, not to God at least. And I remember saying, I am done. You said you're going to take care of me. I am done with this. And there might have been some choice expletives added to that. And I have never felt a peace in my life like I felt immediately after that. And it was as close to audible as I'll ever get, maybe, with him saying, that's all I've been waiting for. Let me take over. And I can tell you my net worth at the time was probably negative, and it's just been a straight line up ever since.
Did you have to do anything physically or just accept that you're giving up control at that point? What is that?
I realized that I didn't need to control everything. I needed to just kind of trust what was going on and trust that there was a reason, and realize that, if God loves me and if he exists, and I think both those things are true for everybody, that he's got my best intentions at heart. And so therefore he could stop whatever's going on in my life, but he's chosen not to. So there must be a reason. And I think that's where oftentimes we have to sit back and say, what's the reason? Rather than complaining about it, realizing that God loves me, God exists, and he could stop this. And we may never find out the reason here on earth, but there is a reason. And so to the best of my ability, I'm going to find that reason out. And I think I needed to go through that fire. I need to go through those trenches to become a better person, to become a better advisor, to be able to do what I'm doing today. I look back and think, boy, that was a financial struggle, but maybe I wouldn't be where I was today had I not gone through that. And just like the triathlon training, you're never going to be an Ironman if you don't put in the hard work and the sore knees and the tired muscles and just all those kind of things. So, and Eric, my wife went through breast cancer surgery. She had breast cancer in 2020, had the surgery and reconstruction and all those things over the next 20 years. And I had the same epiphany. It's like, God loves my wife. He could stop this, but he's chosen not to. What's the reason? And I think the reason is we've gotten to tell her story to a bunch of people and see how her faith has grown and how she's become a stronger person, and she's been able to mentor other women that are going through the same thing. And so I think there's, I hate that she had to go through that, but I think, she's a different person. I'm a different person having helped her go through that.
Man, that's huge. All right. Talk to me about the Ironmans. Like, why did you even start? Were you bored? Where did that come from?
So I was a college athlete, played baseball. This is the before Christian days. I was, probably eating things and drinking things I shouldn't be all the time. And as I sit here today, I'm about 190 pounds. Back then I was probably 230, 235, playing baseball twice a week, going to the gym once or twice. I was 35. I was invincible. I thought, I'll live forever. And my wife, because my family history is not so good on the cardiac side, she said, why don't you go see a cardiologist just for kicks? I know you're in great shape. And this was 40 pounds heavier Steve, and she's telling me I'm in good shape, right? And cardiologist says, I'm at 35. He said, had you not come see me, you probably had a stroke by the time you're 40.
Wow.
So I was all blown up, blockage. Everybody should go to a cardiologist. You don't know what you don't know. And so I'd been seeing a cardiologist still too. And they immediately said, I need to lose a bunch of weight, go on a sugar-free diet, whatever. And one of my wife's best friends did little triathlons on the beach, and she's like, hey, why don't you do a triathlon with me? That's all the challenge I needed. I'm like, well, shoot, I can play baseball. I can do a triathlon. So I signed up for my first triathlon, and I didn't know how to swim. So I figured I better learn how to swim. So I took some swim lessons, and the first triathlon I did was a little one on Siesta Beach, and I was riding a mountain bike, and they have a division at all triathlons for first timers. And I won that division. So I got the little trophy, and there's probably 6 people, and I won it. But congrats. I was on fire after that. So I've probably done 50 triathlons since then, but I've done 4 half Ironmans, but I've never done a full. But I am signed up for a full Ironman now this summer. So at age 54, I'll be doing my first full Ironman.
Congratulations, man. And you look great. But where does that drive come from?
Just type A person. You have the same drive. It's some of us just, I got to get up early. I like to go. I just feel more energized when I'm working out. I like looking at the stats, and you're competing against yourself, and there's no reason that I need to go 0.1 mile faster on my bike other than I want to beat my last record. And so it's just all that. It's the competitive side of us that most of us guys have, and definitely if you were an athlete at some point. And
do you believe that the way you do anything is the way you do everything?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. And I think my wife would tell me I'm just I need to slow down something, but it's what keeps me moving.
How does that apply to your business?
Well, I've had people say, when is enough? And, everybody gets to a point where financially you've got all the money you'll ever need. When you're successful. I mean, I've got a lot of clients that there's no way in the world they'll ever spend all their money, but they still keep growing their business, and they still keep doing things. And at some point, the money is not, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the scorecard. You're doing it to show that you still got it. You still can make a difference. You still got a purpose. And so I think the same thing applies in my business. Is I want to keep growing our business, and it's not so much for me. It's now I want to make sure that my team members don't have a glass ceiling. I want to make sure that if I don't grow my business, there's no upward opportunity for them. If I don't grow my business, I can't add services that are more beneficial to clients. If I don't grow my business, I can't do the altruistic things that I've got set as lifetime goals. And then, I think, some people are given opportunities and some people aren't. And I think if God hands you, the story in the Bible, he gives some people 10 talents, some people 5, and some people 1. If you're one of the people that's given 5 or 10, you got to go make hay and share the wealth with the people who didn't have such, all those opportunities. I think you and I and other people like that we're called to be those people. So it's fun, but B, I want to be able to take, the blessings that I have and be a blessing to other people.
So. That's so good. I think everything in the universe, I'm more of the universal laws type of belief system. I think everything that God designed is for fuller expression and fuller expansion. Like a tree doesn't grow halfway and like, oh, I'm done growing, like it's going to grow until, and that energy is expressed through a lot of people, but it also isn't expressed through a lot of people. You're one of those that took that energy and you want to express it with everything that you're doing. I want to grow my business. I want to get better at the bike. I want to sink a little bit slower when I don't know how to swim. I want to run faster. So that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Talk to me about the world of wealth management. Like what is the biggest misconception when maybe you're hearing from a potentially new client that's coming to see you, say something and a light bulb goes off that is like, oh, I didn't know that you guys did that, or I didn't know this was possible. What do you say to them when that light bulb goes off?
Well, so the biggest misconception I see all the time is when I'm talking to people or one of my clients or colleagues says, hey, you need to go see Steve or Karen or SRQ Wealth. I think the biggest misconception is they say, oh, I have one of those. And I think what they're equating is they have an investment person and they pay a certain fee, et cetera. And that person buys and sells mutual funds or whatever they do. And maybe they're great. I don't know. I don't want to bash other people. They might be good at that. But I can tell you, we built this business model to be a concierge wealth planning firm. And probably for the exact same fee that most people are paying, they're not getting what we do. And that is all the tax strategy and tying in all the estate planning and making sure your assets are protected. And I just don't think most businesses are staffed appropriately to be able to provide that level of service. And frankly, most financial advisors are employees. They're employees of a big firm and they get a paycheck. And so they're first answerable to the person giving them their paycheck. And that's not our case. But the thing I see all the time, and it's how I was trained, it's how every person in the financial industry was trained. And so when somebody comes in and they're complaining about their performance, or they're complaining about their advisor, almost without question, I know what the root cause is going to be before I even look at their statements or look at their whole net worth statement. We've been trained, and I was trained this way, and I had a light bulb come on 4 or 5 years ago. We were trained in our industry to manage people's money based on their emotions. And that sounds so silly because nobody says, I feel good or I don't feel good, therefore do my investments a certain way. What they do, though, in our industry is they simply slide across the table something called a risk tolerance questionnaire. And you answer these silly questions. Some of them you understand, some of them you don't. You may not want to seem crazy, so you don't pick the answer all the way on the right. And next thing you know, you're moderate, or you're income with principal protection, or you're aggressive, not speculative, or all these corny words we use. And then regardless of the goals you've laid out, regardless of when you said you need to pay for weddings or retirement or new car, regardless of any of that stuff, your investments are now based upon this questionnaire because you're now moderately aggressive. And it may have nothing to do. I've seen so many portfolios where the people, maybe they don't need to touch the money for 10 or 15 years, yet they got half their portfolio in bonds because they took this questionnaire and they said, oh, I'm conservative. And frankly, ask Warren Buffett, he'll tell you he's conservative and he's never owned a bond in his life. But when we open people's eyes to this, what we find is they become much better investors because now we invest each and every dollar they have tied to a very specific goal. And I don't worry about what they call themselves. I want them all to be conservative. I want them to make smart decisions with their money. But that doesn't mean we don't want this piece to grow and this piece to be very safe because they need it tomorrow. And so it's just become very eye-opening to us when we share that little story about risk or investing based upon risk or emotions versus investing based upon goals. And that's just the investment piece. If we don't get all the other planning stuff right, it's somewhat irrelevant. We got to get all the planning right, and then the investments kind of fall into place. But I got to tell you, out of the 10 people that have walked in my office in the past 6 months, 9 of them have had that problem.
Wow. I'll tell you a quick story before I ask you who the ideal client is that you can help, because I know it's not everybody. So I got out of the Marine Corps, got a sales job. Julie and I think we were just dating, maybe married first year. We've been together for over 20 years at this point.
Right. And she still puts up with you.
Was that?
And she still puts up with you.
Yeah. It shows a lack of intelligence there, I think. I won't tell her that. Anyway, so I'm at some BNI event and I meet this financial advisor lady, right? And she's like, I got this awesome software. We put in all your stuff and it kicks this thing out and you'll get a financial report. Now, I didn't know anything about dude, I grew up broke.
Right.
There's zero financial literacy at all. If I could afford the monthly payment, you can afford it, right?
No rubles in your pocket.
No rubles in my pocket. And so Julia and I go meet with her and she gets all of our information and she puts it in and she's like, we find out that we have about $2,000 per month left over after all the bills are paid and everything. And this was great, but this is before kids. This is before anything.
Right.
So she comes up with this comprehensive insurance policy plan that guess how much it costs per month.
$19.99, right?
No, $2,000. Like it was exactly the amount that we had left over. And thank God we didn't do that, because Julie ended up getting laid off because the company she was working for cut a bunch of their workforce. We had a baby. We bought a house. Like, I'm thinking about it now, and it's like, that was just terrible. And it left such a bad taste in my mouth at that point. I still remember that story. But who's the ideal client for SRQ Wealth?
Well, I'd say, first of all, the first criteria is they have to be nice. And it sounds silly, but when I look at a potential new relationship, and we're only trying to bring on 5-10 new relationships a year, I expect that they're going to work with me for the rest of their life. And so I want to make sure that there's no friction. I want to make sure that they enjoy working with us. We enjoy working with them. There has to be a mutual respect there. But they tend to be hands-off people. I find that people that are entrepreneurs, people that are salespeople, they tend to be really good delegators. They know what they're good at and they know what they're not good at. And then there's other people, maybe let's pick on engineers, that they get out of their sandbox too easily. And I find that when you get out of your sandbox, you can do more harm than good. And so maybe we can retrain them. We do have some recovering engineers, but people that are good at staying in their sandbox and letting everybody else do the rest, they end up being so productive because now they're laser focused on the thing that they're really, really good at, and they're delegating the other things to somebody else who's better at them. And so that tends to be a defining factor. I'd say most of our clients are millionaires, or at least future millionaires. I'd say our average clients, north of $3 to $5 million in investable assets, with net worth probably higher than that. But I just brought on a client, and she's 24, her husband's 26. They've got $7,000 to their name, but they can save $50,000 a year. Okay, it's not my target client, but I love working with those folks because they are absolutely future millionaires. They listen well, they're coachable, they're doing all the right things, they're saving like crazy. I love working with young people who are on the right path. And if I can get them to do all the right things and not all the silly things I did, they're going to be there so much faster. But yeah, a lot of our clients are business owners. They sold a business. They've got some complications that they need our help, tax wise, legal wise, et cetera, and lets us kind of help them find their freedom.
I don't know how many people I've asked this question to, and I've never had "they have to be nice" as the first answer, which I love. I absolutely love that. That they have to be nice. Anyway, if you're nice and you are a millionaire or a future millionaire, you got to go check out my friend Steve at SRQ Wealth, because they definitely will take care of you in a different way. Steve, is there anything that I did not ask you that you were just wishing that I would?
Well, I think we love to educate. And as you know, I've created a lot of videos. I'm always putting out educational videos. If people simply sign up on our website, they'll get all of our information. And we're probably putting out information and or a video, and these are short, they're 2 minutes on some educational topic, probably once a week or so. And so I'd encourage people to do that. And also, I think you're going to put up a link to a simple little, I think it's called a financial health assessment. It's just a little 7-question survey that we've created. And it really helps you understand where you have gaps and really where you have priorities. And so it's not the typical financial questionnaire about taxes and things. It's really about life and where you've put some emphasis and where you need to put some emphasis. And so I'd encourage people to take that little assessment and see what you find out. Maybe eye-opening.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, it'll be in our arsenal, and I'll also link it underneath the video. What's your favorite question to ask, by the way, when you meet somebody for the first time? Like, what's the one question you're always asking?
Well, from a marketing standpoint, I always want to know how they met me.
Okay.
And so I'll give away a little of the secret sauce here. So there's kind of 2 or 3 first questions. I always want to know how they met me, and it's either through some digital media or it's because somebody introduced them. The follow-up is, tell me something about that, because they're always going to say something nice. They didn't look at some video, hate it, and then call you. They checked out my website. They did all the research. We got a ton of Google reviews out there. I encourage people to read our Google reviews. But then they'll say, oh, your reviews are really nice. So they'll say something nice. Or they'll say, oh, Eric introduced me, told me I should give you a call. And I said, oh, what'd Eric say? And of course, Eric said a bunch of nice things. And so we're immediately starting off. See, I'm learning from you. You're the sales wizard. I'm learning that right out of the gate, we're having this real fun conversation. But my next question is always about time sensitivity. It's always, you could have seen 1,000, there's got to be 1,000 other financial people here in town of different stripes. And the fact that you chose to come in here, A, shows you're making decisions about your money very seriously, and I appreciate that. But why now? Why not next week? Why not last week? Why are you here now?
I love it.
And they instantly go to the pain point. But the other thing I've done is I realized that my time's valuable, theirs time's valuable. And I was always trained to say, just come in, we'll have a chat, we'll have a cup of coffee. And I realized how unprofessional that is. I'm wasting people's time because they're coming in and I don't have any solutions. We're just having this big fat conversation. So now I require that before people come in, they provide me some information so I can be educated and I can immediately provide something of value back to them. And I think A, it's more professional, and B, they instantly can see, are we good at what we do or aren't we? And we can all make decisions pretty quickly on that.
That's huge, man. I think in sales, one of the biggest mistakes salespeople make is they confuse commonality with building rapport.
Right. And
I've been through so many sales trainings that teach you, hey, when you show up in somebody's office, look around their walls. And if you see them fishing, you start talking about fishing. Don't do that. You can talk about fishing once they're a client, they've trusted you, you've built that rapport. But step one, do not talk about fishing.
Yeah, they're not looking for a fishing buddy.
They're not looking for a fishing buddy. Steve, thank you, man. Thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot, and just being in your presence always kind of lifts my spirit. So thank you, guys. Go check out SRQ Wealth and get your finances in order. It's important. Bye, everybody. See you on the next episode.